one heel in my hand, the other still barely hanging onto my foot. The night air clung to my skin like regret, thick and cold, and my lipstick was smudged somewhere between the truth and whatever lies I'd told myself at the bar. Girls' night out. That's what we called it. Laughter loud enough to cover up the cracks in our lives. I drank just enough to feel something, not enough to forget. The house was still. Too still. You know that kind of quiet that hums? The kind that isn't absence of sound, but a presence of something else. That's what greeted me. Not silence, but a warning. Like the walls were holding their breath, waiting for me to notice. I clicked the door shut behind me, wincing at the sound. The click echoed down the hallway like a warning shot. I dropped my heel to the floor, and the sound of it tumbling felt louder than it should have. My keys hit the counter with a clatter that made me flinch. Why was it so dark? He always left the light over the stove on for me. Said it was our lighthouse. Something soft to come home to. Tonight? Nothing. I hovered by the light switch, hesitating. My hand shook, maybe from the cold, maybe from the drink, maybe from something else I didn't want to name. Then, click. The lights buzzed to life, and everything in me sank. It wasn't anything big at first. No shattered glass or blood on the walls. No horror movie twist. Just off. His shoes weren't by the door. Not where they always were. His coat, gone. The framed photo on the console table? The one from our anniversary in Santa Cruz? Face down. I stared at it for a second too long, like maybe it would right itself if I blinked enough. Okay, I whispered. To no one. The hallway stretched like a bad memory. I patted down it, the hardwood cold beneath my bare foot. The bedroom door was open. That door was never open at night. He knew I hated it, said it made me feel watched. Inside, the bed was untouched. Pillows fluffed. Blanket folded back neatly. He wasn't here. I didn't panic. Not right away. That came later. At first, I just stood there. Confused. A little annoyed. Maybe he couldn't sleep. Maybe he went for a walk. Maybe I'm overthinking it, right? But then I caught it. That smell. Perfume. Not mine. It was sweet, cheap. Not the kind I wear. Something younger. Something loud. It lingered, like it belonged here. Like it had been here long enough to settle. My throat closed. Just a little. Not all the way. Not yet. I walked to the dresser. His wallet gone. Ring dish. Empty. And still, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there like someone who walked into the wrong house by mistake. A ghost in her own life. I walked to the kitchen. The wine I poured before I left still sat on the counter. A half-empty glass beside it. Red. Warm now. Dead. I took a sip. Bitter. Wrong. I swallowed it anyway. Something cold brushed my spine. Memory, maybe. Or fear. Or knowing. You always think you'll know the moment your life changes. That there'll be this big crack of thunder, this dramatic realization. But it doesn't come like that. It's slower. Quieter. A drip, not a flood. Tonight, it came in the form of a crooked picture frame and a scent that didn't belong to me. I stood in the middle of my perfect, curated kitchen, the one with subway tiles and little copper accents I picked out with Pinterest confidence and desperate hope. And I felt it. Everything was wrong. Not loud wrong. Not scream and call the police wrong. But quiet wrong. The kind that eats you slowly. And the worst part? I think I knew. I think I'd known for weeks. Maybe months. But knowing and admitting are not the same thing. Not when your heart is still pretending it can fix things with loyalty and silence. So I sat down on the cold tile floor, legs sprawled out, hair sticking to my cheek. I didn't cry. Not yet. Because something told me the tears wouldn't fix this. And whatever was broken wasn't just him. It was me. And everything I thought I knew. I woke up to silence. No alarm. No soft rustle of sheets beside me. No half-sleep murmur of his voice asking if I wanted coffee. Just the hollow ache of an untouched bed and the weight of daylight creeping through the blinds like a secret I didn't ask to hear. I didn't remember falling asleep. At some point, my body must have given in. I must have curled up on the cold tile floor like a stray left out in the rain. Now I lay in bed, fully clothed, my makeup smeared, my dress wrinkled and twisted around me like regret I couldn't shake off. The clock on the nightstand read 9:41 a.m. He still wasn't home. I sat up slowly, the nausea in my stomach rising like a tide. The bedroom looked too clean, too composed, like a stage set someone forgot to clear. His side of the bed was untouched, pillow fluffed, not a single crease on the sheets. Mine, on the other hand, looked like it had survived a storm. I ran my hand over the empty space where he should have been. It was cold. No lingering warmth. No scent of his skin on the fabric. Just emptiness. I got up and pulled on an old hoodie. His hoodie, actually. It used to hang on him like armor, but it wrapped around me like a memory now, loose, faded, and unfamiliar. I walked through the house again. Slower this time. More deliberate. The little things I didn't notice the night before began to flicker into view. His laptop wasn't on the desk. The charger was gone. So was the duffel bag we kept in the coat closet. I opened a drawer in the bathroom and stared at the empty space where his toothbrush used to be. My eyes trailed over the counter, landing on his cologne. Still there, but the bottle was missing a chunk of liquid that hadn't been missing yesterday. It wasn't just that he hadn't come home. It was that he hadn't meant to. This wasn't a spontaneous night out or some drunken mistake. This was intentional, planned, thought out, executed with the kind of precision that doesn't come from impulse but from decision. And that realization settled into my chest like ice. I sat on the edge of the tub, staring at the tile. My mind was doing that thing it always did, trying to rationalize, trying to soften the blow. Maybe he got called away for work. Maybe he had a family emergency. Maybe he's trying to surprise me. Maybe. But even the maybes tasted sour now. Truth has a flavor, and I was choking on it. I wandered back into the bedroom, trying to focus. Trying to remember the last few weeks, to trace the trail of breadcrumbs I had ignored. He had been more distant, more tired, always somewhere else, even when he was sitting next to me. Conversations had turned to logistics, groceries, bills, errands, but never feelings. Never us. When was the last time he looked at me? I mean, really looked? Saw me as something more than background noise. I walked over to my vanity and stared at myself in the mirror. My eyes looked too wide. My skin pale. The kind of face you make when the ground gives out beneath you and you're still pretending you can fly. I reached for a tissue and wiped at the mascara stains under my eyes. It didn't help much. The damage was deeper than the surface. The phone on my nightstand buzzed. A notification. Not from him. A text from Rachel. Such a fun night. Hope you made it home okay, Red Heart. I stared at the screen. And then I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I laughed. Not a happy laugh. Not even a bitter one. Just a laugh that came from somewhere deep and hollow, like the sound an abandoned house might make when the wind passes through it. I typed back, yeah, all good. Then tossed the phone aside. Lying had become second nature. Even to my friends. Even to myself. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. The light poured in through the blinds, slanting across the walls, casting long, fractured shadows that danced in silence. They reminded me of how we used to dance in this room on Sunday mornings. Barefoot, carefree, before everything went quiet, before I started waking up next to a ghost. And now, I was alone. Utterly, unmistakably alone. The weight of it pressed down on me, not like grief, but like a truth I had always known was coming. He wasn't coming back. And somehow, I already knew. I didn't leave the house for 2 days. The blinds stayed closed. The TV was off. My phone remained face down on the nightstand, ignored and silent, except for the occasional buzz of someone else's life continuing without me. I wandered through the rooms like a ghost, moving without purpose, without hunger, without voice. There was something sacred about the stillness, something punishing but strangely necessary. Like I was in mourning, not for a person, but for the version of myself that had believed this was love. I stopped wearing makeup, stopped brushing my hair, stopped pretending. It was strange how quickly the body adapts to grief, how silence can start to feel like home. On the third day, I woke up with a headache that pulsed behind my eyes like a warning. I dragged myself into the bathroom, turned on the cold water, and stared into the mirror. The woman looking back at me was barely recognizable. Eyes rimmed in red, lips dry and cracked, hair knotted at the back like she'd been through a windstorm. I looked older, like something inside me had aged years overnight. And yet, there was something else. Something flickering just beneath the wreckage. A sharpness I hadn't seen before. Not rage. Not yet. But the seed of it. I turned on the faucet and splashed water over my face. My hands trembled. When I reached for the towel, it slipped from the rack and fell. I bent down to pick it up, and that's when I saw it. A glint. Something small and silvery, caught under the edge of the sink. I knelt and pulled it out. It was a delicate earring, gold, with a tiny red gem in the center. Not mine. I stared at it for a long time, holding it in the center of my palm. It was warm from the light, and suddenly I hated that. Hated that something so small, so beautiful, could carry so much violence inside it. I hadn't needed confirmation. Not really. I already knew. But this was the first object, the first fact that screamed louder than the whispers in my head. I stood up and looked in the mirror again, held the earring up to my ear. Let it dangle there. Pretty, I said aloud. My voice sounded dry, rusted, just not mine. And that's when I finally allowed myself to feel it. The grief cracked. Not all at once, not in some cinematic breakdown, but slowly, like a splinter being pulled from flesh. Painful, but clean. I slid down the wall and sat on the cold tile floor, my knees drawn to my chest, the earring still clutched in one hand. And I cried. Not the quiet, reserved kind of crying I'd practiced in silence for years. No, this was different. This was ugly. Raw. The kind of crying that came from your ribs. The kind that left your face swollen and your lungs aching. I cried until my throat was raw and my chest hurt from the pressure of holding it all in for too damn long. I cried for the woman I used to be. For the girl who believed that love was something you earned by being soft, forgiving, silent. I cried for the years I'd wasted measuring my worth by someone else's attention. I cried because I'd been so careful, so loyal, so desperately hopeful. And still, it hadn't been enough. When the crying stopped, I just sat there. Empty, but lighter somehow. Like something had been scraped clean inside me, even if it left scars. I stood up, wiped my face with the edge of the towel, and looked in the mirror one more time. The woman staring back still looked broken, but now, she looked awake. I placed the earring on the counter beside the sink. I didn't throw it away. I wanted to see it. I wanted to remember. Because forgetting is easy. But remembering? That's where the power lives. I left the bathroom and walked back into the bedroom. The bed was still unmade. The sheets still smelled like a stranger's absence. But the light looked different now. Sharper. Less forgiving. I pulled open the blinds. Sunlight flooded the room, harsh and blinding. Dust floated through the air like glitter in a shaken jar. I stood there, letting it burn across my skin, not flinching this time. Let the world see me like this. Wrecked, but not ruined. Not anymore. By the time the fourth morning came, the grief had settled into something heavier. Not sadness, not confusion. Something colder. Something sharp enough to cut through the fog I'd been dragging behind me like a second skin. I wasn't crying anymore. I wasn't asking why, or how, or what did I miss. I already knew the answers. Maybe not the exact details, but the outlines were clear. The silence he left behind had said more than any confession ever could. Silence, when you expect truth, is betrayal. I made coffee. Black. No sugar. He used to say it was too bitter that way. Said I drank it like I had something to prove. Maybe I did. Maybe I still do. I sat at the kitchen table, wrapped in the same hoodie, staring at nothing while the mug warmed my hands. I thought about texting him. I thought about calling. But there was nothing I wanted to say. Nothing that wouldn't make me feel small. He had left. Quietly. Carefully. Like a thief in his own house. He didn't owe me an explanation. That much was obvious. He'd already said everything he needed to by packing up his life and vanishing into someone else's. But I owed myself something. Answers. Not from him. He'd proven he didn't have the spine to offer honesty. But there were clues. Shadows. Echoes. And I was done pretending not to see them. I started with the bank account. We had a shared savings. Small, but enough to feel like something real. A future, we used to call it. When I logged in, I saw what I feared and expected, a withdrawal, made the night I came home from that goddamn girl's night out. He'd taken his half, almost to the cent. Not $1 more, not $1 less. Clinical. Detached. Like settling a debt. Next came the call log. His number, gone. His last call, placed at 2:41 a.m., 20 minutes before I turned on the lights and felt the floor vanish beneath me. Not to me. Not to anyone in his family. It was a local number I didn't recognize. No name attached. But it was saved in my phone history now. Then, something clicked. Instagram. She was tagged in a photo. Not him. Her. The same cheap perfume scent I had smelled that night felt like it was seeping through the screen. Her name was Kara. Blonde. 23. Worked at a bar downtown. I remembered her now. She'd waited our table once. He'd joked with her. Said she reminded him of someone he used to know. I guess I should have listened harder. There were pictures. Her and him. Laughing, drinking. her hand casually resting on his thigh in the background of someone else's party post. Nothing overt. Nothing scandalous. Just enough. I didn't flinch. I didn't throw the phone. Instead, I saved the photo. Not for revenge. For truth. Because gaslighting doesn't always come in words. Sometimes, it comes in your own refusal to trust what's right in front of you. And I was done looking away. I went to the bedroom and opened the closet. His side was empty. But mine wasn't. Not anymore. I started pulling things out. Dresses I wore to make him smile. Heels I bought because he said I looked powerful in them. Little pieces of myself I'd collected like armor, but they were never mine. They were costumes for a role I didn't even realize I was playing. I filled 2 garbage bags and dragged them to the front door. Clutter had no place in this house anymore. Not physical. Not emotional. Not his. Not mine. The sun had started to dip outside. Evening crept through the windows with an orange hue that made everything look gentler than it deserved. I stood at the window and watched as the world kept moving. Cars passing, dogs barking, someone mowing a lawn across the street like nothing had changed. But I had changed. Not broken. Not bitter. Reconstructed. Not softer. Sharper. I walked back to the bathroom and stared again at the earring I'd left on the sink. It still shimmered. Still smelled like her. I picked it up, turned it over in my fingers. Then I dropped it into the toilet and flushed. A quiet ending. No drama. Just closure. When the water swirled away, it took more than the gold and the gem. It took the last of the illusion. The final thread of denial. He was gone. She existed. And I wasn't the same woman I'd been before that night. Good. She needed to go. I was someone else now. And I was just getting started. There's something about cleaning that becomes addictive when your world's been torn apart. Maybe it's the illusion of control, scrubbing grime from corners you didn't even know existed, rearranging the shelves like maybe, just maybe, you could do the same with your heart. It doesn't work, of course, but it keeps your hands busy. And when your hands are busy, your mind stops screaming for a while. It was during one of those cleaning fits that I found the letter. It wasn't hidden, exactly. It was tucked inside an old book, on the road, of all things. A copy I'd once gifted him, back when we were still high on potential and half drunk on the idea of forever. I hadn't touched that bookshelf in months. Maybe longer. But something, call it gut, call it fate, pulled me to it that morning. The letter was folded in 4, pressed between pages like a pressed flower someone had forgotten. I recognized the handwriting immediately. His. I hesitated. My first instinct was to tear it in half, burn it, delete it from my memory like a corrupted file. But something stopped me. Not curiosity. Not nostalgia. No, it was something heavier. A sense of dread I couldn't place. I unfolded it. If you're reading this, it began, then I never got the courage to tell you the truth. My stomach dropped. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I was afraid you'd stop loving me once you knew. The words blurred. Not from tears. From rage. It wasn't about another woman. Not really. Not in the way you think. I sat down hard on the floor, the letter shaking in my hands. Her name is Kara, yeah? But she's not someone I cheated on you with. She's my daughter. My heart stopped. From before you and me. A mistake I made when I was 20. I didn't even know about her until last year. Her mom was sick. Dying. She didn't want to leave Kara alone, so she told me the truth. I met her once. Then again. Then, I started helping. Quietly. I didn't know how to bring it to you. I didn't want you to think I'd been lying this whole time. I reread the paragraph 3 times before I could breathe. A daughter? A whole child? When you went out that night, I planned to tell you everything when you came back. But you looked so free. So happy. And I felt like a monster for dragging that weight into your smile. I put the letter down, my pulse a hurricane behind my ribs. So I left. Because I didn't want to watch you unlove me in real time. I didn't think I deserved your forgiveness. Or your pain. I thought leaving was mercy. Maybe it was cowardice. But it was all I had left. There was more. But I couldn't read it. I couldn't even move. My brain was trying to rearrange itself around this thing. This truth that didn't match the betrayal I'd built in my mind like a fortress. For days, I'd imagined them together. Him touching her, whispering things he used to say to me. I imagined passion, lies, a double life full of heat and deceit. But this was something else entirely. Worse in a way, because it meant I'd been wrong. Not about the pain, but about the shape of it. I wasn't abandoned for love. Or lust. I was abandoned for shame. I stood up, paced, stopped, sat again. I didn't know what to do. My mind kept flashing back to that earring. The perfume. The photos online. It all fit. But differently now. She had been in his life. But not as a lover. As blood. His kid. I looked at the mirror above the fireplace. I expected to see myself shattered again. But I didn't. I saw someone harder. Clearer. Someone who knew now that love, real love, doesn't always come wrapped in honesty. Sometimes it comes warped. Messy. Painful. And sometimes the lies we tell ourselves hurt more than the ones others hide from us. He'd lied by omission. I'd lied by assumption. And now? Now we were both ghosts in a house neither of us could fully claim. But I was the only one still standing in it. And that counted for something. Maybe everything. The letter sat on the table like a live wire. It changed everything. And somehow, it changed nothing at all. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. My brain kept running in loops, rewinding, dissecting, reimagining. One moment, I hated him for keeping a secret that big. The next, I hated myself for the things I'd assumed. For the way I'd turned pain into a weapon and aimed it at shadows. I poured whiskey into my coffee at 3 a.m. Not to forget, just to feel something different for a minute. A warmth that didn't come from rage or tears or cold clarity. There was a part of me that wanted to call him. Scream. Not because of the daughter. Not even because he left. But because he didn't trust me enough to tell me. Because he made the decision for me. Took the choice out of my hands. Like I couldn't handle the weight of his truth. And maybe I couldn't. Maybe that's why it burned so much. I thought back to the night he left. To how clean the break had been. No confrontation. No mess. Just absence. And now I understood it. Not excused it, but understood it. There's something sickening about realizing someone hurt you not out of cruelty, but out of cowardice. That kind of wound seeps deeper. I stood by the window as the sun started to rise, casting pale blue over the street like a slow exhale. People were already walking their dogs, rushing to early shifts, talking on phones, laughing. The world was still spinning. I wasn't sure if I was. A knock came around noon. Soft. Tentative. I froze. There was only one person it could be. I waited a full minute before opening the door. And there he was. Same eyes. Same tired slouch. A little thinner. Holding a manila envelope in one hand, like it weighed more than it should. He didn't speak. Neither did I. I just stepped aside and let him in. The air shifted. Like the house itself was holding its breath. He sat at the table. I stood by the counter. There was so much to say, and none of it came out. Finally, he slid the envelope across the table. She wrote you a letter too, he said. His voice cracked like dry wood. I didn't touch it. I didn't even look at it. I wasn't cheating, he said. I swear to God, it wasn't like that. I know, I said. He blinked. You do? I found your letter. He looked down. Not guilty. Just hollow. I didn't know what else to do, he said. I wanted to tell you. But I kept picturing your face. The way you'd look at me. I couldn't stand the idea of being someone different in your eyes. So you became no one instead, I said. Silence. He nodded. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he whispered. I wanted you to know. The truth. I stared at him for a long time. I searched his face for the man I used to love. He was still in there, but smaller now. Dimmer. Worn thin by fear and time. And I realized something I hadn't expected. I didn't hate him. Not anymore. The pain was still there, sure. But the rage? The fire? It had burned out. Left behind something quieter. Not peace. Not yet. But something close. I needed to become someone else to survive this, I said. And I did. I see that, he said. You look different. I am different. He nodded again, then stood slowly, like his bones were made of regret. I won't bother you again. As he turned to leave, I stopped him. Wait. He turned. I walked to the table, picked up the envelope, and held it for a second. I'll read it. Her letter. But not now. He nodded, his eyes glossy. Thank you. Then he left. And this time, it didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like choice. I stood in the center of the house, everything quiet again. But it wasn't the suffocating silence from before. This one felt earned. Settled. I didn't know what I would do with her letter. Whether I'd reach out. Whether I'd forgive either of them. Whether I even needed to. But I knew this much. I wasn't broken. Not anymore. Whatever came next, fire, forgiveness, or something in between, it would be mine to choose. And I'd never let someone take that from me again. It took me 3 days to open her letter. I left it on the table, untouched. Walked past it 100 times. Sometimes I'd stare at it like it was some kind of bomb. waiting for me to cut the wrong wire and lose whatever was left of my calm. But on the third morning, just as the sun cracked through the blinds and lit up the floor in golden streaks, I sat down. No coffee, no whiskey, just me and the truth. I opened the envelope. Her handwriting was small, careful, like she wasn't sure she had the right to take up space on the page. Hi, I'm Kara. Simple start. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from. And honestly, I wasn't even going to write this. But I wanted to. Not because I think I deserve anything from you, but because I know how this probably looked. And you deserve the truth. I kept reading. She told me about her mom. About how she found out who her dad really was after her mother's diagnosis. She didn't say much about her feelings. Just facts. But I could read between the lines. Fear. Guilt. A weird, quiet kind of sadness. She wasn't trying to replace me. She wasn't even trying to be in his life. Not really. At first, she just wanted answers. But then, he stepped up. Started sending money. Calling. Showing up. Trying. He never talked bad about you. Never lied about being with someone. He just said he didn't know how to tell you. That you were good. And he didn't want to ruin the only good thing he'd ever really had. That line hit harder than it should have. I think he thought leaving would make it easier. For everyone. I think he thought disappearing would protect you from the weight of it. But I know now that silence doesn't protect anyone. It just builds walls where there should have been bridges. Her letter wasn't long, but it was enough. Enough to remind me that not every wound is malicious. Some are born from fear. Some from grief. Some from people who never learned how to stay when things get complicated. I folded the letter back up and placed it in a drawer. Not to forget it, but to let it rest. And then I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I went outside. Not just to take the trash out or get groceries in a hoodie and sunglasses. I went outside. Took a walk. Breathed in the cold air. Let the wind hit my face and sting my eyes and remind me that I was still here. I passed a little bookstore on Main and went inside. Bought a journal. Blank pages. Clean. Untouched. Waiting. I started writing that night. Not to him. Not to her. To me. Everything I'd buried. Everything I'd carried. Every sharp edge I dulled just to keep from bleeding out. I wrote until my hand cramped. Until my chest stopped feeling like a cage. And somewhere between page 30 and 31, I smiled. Not because it was over, but because I had survived it. And I had done it alone. I didn't text him. Didn't block him either. Forgiveness, I'd learned, isn't always a loud, dramatic declaration. Sometimes it's just not hating anymore. Sometimes it's sitting in your living room with all the lights on and realizing you don't need revenge. Or closure. Or even an apology. You just need you back. So that night, I lit every damn lamp in the house. Every bulb. Every hallway. The place glowed like a lighthouse in a storm. And I sat there, barefoot, wine glass in hand, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like lavender and me. Not us. And I let the quiet be just that. Quiet. Not lonely. Not broken. Just calm. Free. I didn't know what would happen next. If he'd come back. If she'd write again. If I'd ever really forgive him fully. But I knew one thing for sure. The next chapter would be mine. Written in my own words. In my own damn voice. And this time, the light would stay on. Not waiting for anyone. Just because I wanted that way.